there was never, ever a serious commitment to end the land theft of Palestinians, to end the expansion of that land theft.
And I think the reason why is because there was never a serious commitment by Palestinians to a two-state solution.
That's nonsense. The Palestinians made the offer quite open. When you look,
Palestinians and Arabs already said no to that when in 47 with the initial UN partition. So we already ignored that. So that's gone. That's off the table.
Yeah.
Now we're looking at
this is insufferable. No, it's not gone. I don't know what you're talking about.
You don't get to say you don't get to have an agreement on the table and then say no. Actually, we're going to try to kill all of you. And then when you fail, go okay. Well, let's go back to that agreement. 47 and 48 is off the table.
Palestinians in 1947 were being asked to give up more than half of their country to allow for the creation of a Jewish state. And they said no to that.
What country?
What do you mean what country? It doesn't have to be a sovereign country.
There was no country there. There were a collection of tribes and people that lived there, subsistence farmers. There was no country of Palestine.
They lived there. That's all that matters. This is like saying that white settlers taking over the United States was fine.
You keep bringing up the United States. The United States is a sovereign state with recognized borders. You just said that there was no sovereign state of Palestine in 47.
When Israel was created, a series of massacres were committed against Palestinian towns and villages. 700,000 people were driven from their homes.
First of all, 700. So it was like
towns and
it was like
villages
20,000 people. I think were 10 to 20,000 people were driven from their homes. The rest left because they were worried about violence. But not 700,000 people weren't driven from their homes.
Yeah, you can. No. If that's a distinction that is meaningful to you, you're free to feel that.
That distinction is absolutely. Oh, okay. Well, I'm sorry. Would you agree then? Would you agree that millions of Jews were driven from their homes across the entirety of all the Arab states after 48, after 67, after 73?
Hundreds of thousands. Yes, and I think that there is a plausible case to make for that being the correct language for it. And frankly, there is admissions of Zionists playing a part in that to try to make Jews feel less safe in other parts of the Middle East in order to drive them to Israel. Again, not history I'm expecting you to be familiar with, and that's okay.
I'm super familiar.
Not gives Israel the right to say that these refugees don't get to come back home. They don't have that right. So the point is...
why don't they get to return? It's because they left and then they waged war against Israel to try to destroy them. Why would you want them back after?
Who's the they? The civilian population?
The surrounding, the civilian population, the surrounding Arab states, yes. Because it was gone. But I'm just saying that, like, regardless, Britain had the territory. They were the ones with the mandate to administer to it. That was the agreement.
The point is importing a Jewish population from Europe and then trying to force the Palestinian population living on the land to leave parts of it in order to allow for a Jewish state to be created is morally wrong. That is...
I mean, like, it's complicated. I mean, they purchased the land. Yeah, it is. It is complicated.
They did not purchase the land.
They did. A lot of it was purchased. Yeah, the Surstock programs, they were huge.
50% of historic Palestine to a Jewish population that owned 7 to 9% of the land.
That's partially true, but they weren't giving it. That partition plan for the Jewish state wasn't initially given only to Jews. The division of population would have been 55% Jews, 45% Arabs that lived there, which kind of hurts the idea that Jews wanted to expel all the Arabs from the land. That expulsion didn't come until after all the surrounding Arab states declared war on the newly emerging state of Israel in an attempt to expel them from the region. What part of what I just said was incorrect? You keep saying no and then not actually...
I'll tell you which part of what you said is incorrect.
Okay.
30% of the population of the 700,000 plus Palestinians who were driven out before 1948. Before the neighboring Arab armies got involved.
Because there was a civil war that because there was a civil war that started that went from 47 to 49 in that territory. That civil war started because Arabs rejected the partition plan, and then they started to go hard. They wanted to fight. Yes, they rejected the partition plan. They started to fight. Obviously, Israel, not Israel yet, but the Irgun, the Haganah, and the third one, the pre-IDF people started to defend themselves as the Arabs started to fight their villages. There was a civil war that started in 47, and then in 48, all after Israel declares independence, all of the surrounding Arab states decide that they're also going to join and go to war. And unfortunately for them, I guess Israel won that war. And then, a lot of Palestinians fled their villages afterwards because they were worried that their villages were going to get destroyed. And Israel started to grab land, and Jordan grabbed land. That's when they got the West Bank and then annexed it. That's when Egypt came in and they grabbed land. They got the Gaza Strip. That's what happened afterwards. But I mean...
No, this is honestly a remarkable attempt at having a conversation.
What did I just say that was incorrect?
The militias that you described pre-1948, before they became the IDF, were considered many of them terrorist groups.
Not
by
really.
British
The Irgun
authorities.
was a Haganah, not as much. It really depends on who you're talking about.
And they've engaged in a campaign of ethnic cleansing. They've gone into Palestinian towns and villages and they've executed people en masse to drive people out. Those are the actions that they engaged in that you just described as self-defense. It is honestly laughable.
Some of it was self-defense. Some of it was massacres. Yeah, there are. Yeah, absolutely. Of course, they were massacring people on both sides. I'm not saying that the pre-IDF force and even afterwards, yeah, Israel's engaged in massacres in towns, horrible ones in Lebanon. Like, I'm not going to say they're totally innocent, of course. But it's not just one side is the aggressor and the other side is this innocent party that is doing nothing. There was Arab violence against Israelis pre-48, yeah.
And what Israel is currently engaging in Gaza. Can we do that for a little bit?
Sure.